Right now, as you watch this, the world is still here. You're breathing. The city outside your window exists. Everyone you've ever loved is still alive. And none of it, was guaranteed on the night of September 26th, 1983. Because on that night, one man, sitting alone in a bunker outside Moscow, had 10 minutes to decide whether the world would end. He wasn't the president, he wasn't a general, he wasn't anyone you've ever heard of. He was a mid-level officer working the night shift, and he said no. This is the story of Stanislav Petrov, the man history forgot, the man who, without knowing it, saved every single person alive on Earth today. To understand what Petrov was dealing with, you need to understand 1983. Not the music, not the fashion, the terror. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union had been burning for nearly 40 years. Two superpowers, two nuclear arsenals, each side capable of ending all human life on Earth, not once, but dozens of times over. By 1983, the US had over 23,000 nuclear warheads. The Soviets had more than 35,000. Together, they had enough explosive power to destroy every major city on Earth and still have weapons left over. And both sides had a plan. If the other side launches, you launch back. Immediately. No hesitation. This doctrine had a name: Mutual Assured Destruction. MAD. And the name wasn't ironic. It was MAD. But 1983 specifically, 1983 was different. That March, President Ronald Reagan stood before the nation and called the Soviet Union the evil empire. Not a rival, not an adversary, an evil empire. In Moscow, they heard that. And they were not happy. Soviet intelligence had been warning for months that the Americans might be planning a first strike, a surprise nuclear attack designed to wipe out Soviet missiles before they could be launched. The Kremlin was genuinely afraid, not politically afraid, existentially afraid. They launched a secret intelligence program called Operation Ryan, specifically designed to detect signs that the US was preparing to strike first. Every Soviet spy in every Western country was told, watch for the signs, watch for military movements, watch for unusual activity. And then, on September 1st, 1983, 3 weeks before our story, it got dramatically worse. A Soviet fighter jet shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007, a civilian passenger plane, 269 people on board, including a US congressman. Reagan called it a massacre. Washington erupted. The world erupted. And in Moscow, the military leadership, already paranoid, already terrified, became convinced the Americans were looking for any excuse. The Soviet nuclear forces were placed on the highest alert they had seen in years. Which brings us to Serpukhov 15. 60 miles south of Moscow, buried underground, sat one of the most important rooms in the world. It had no windows, no natural light, just humming machines, flickering screens, and the constant tension of people who knew exactly what their job was worth. This was Serpukhov 15, the nerve center of the Soviet Union's nuclear early warning system, codenamed Oko, which means eye in Russian. 9 satellites in orbit, all of them watching the United States. Watching the missile silos in Montana, the bases in Kansas, the submarines under the Atlantic. The moment any one of those satellites detected a missile launch, the screen would light up, the alarm would sound. And the protocol was clear. Report up the chain of command immediately. The generals decide, missiles fly. The entire system, from alarm to nuclear launch, was designed to take minutes. On the night of September 26, 1983, a Tuesday, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov sat down for the night shift. He was 44 years old, a software engineer by training. He had actually helped write some of the code for the early warning system. He understood it better than almost anyone. He was not supposed to be on duty that night. He had replaced a colleague, a small accidental twist of the schedule that would turn out to matter more than almost any military decision in the 20th century. Shortly after midnight, the bunker was quiet. Then everything changed. The alarm hit like a physical thing, sirens screaming, red lights strobing across every face in the room, and on the main screen, in letters that left no room for interpretation. Launch, not possible launch, not suspected activity. Launch, with a reliability rating the system described as highest confidence. Every single person in that bunker turned to look at Stanislav Petrov because he was the commanding officer on duty, and the protocol said he reports it up the chain, right now. The phone was right there, one call. That's all. Report the launch to his superiors. They escalate. The generals get the report. They advise the premier. The premier decides. And with Soviet doctrine, what it was in 1983, with every nerve in the military on high alert, a confirmed American missile launch almost certainly meant one thing: a retaliatory nuclear strike on the United States. But Petrov didn't reach for the phone. He sat there and he thought. One missile. The Americans were launching one missile? He had spent years studying American nuclear strategy. He knew, deeply, technically knew, that if the United States was going to strike first, they would not fire one missile. They would fire hundreds, simultaneously, to destroy Soviet launch capability before a counterstrike was possible. One missile made no sense. He checked the ground radar. Ground radar tracked missiles once they cleared the horizon. If this was real, if a missile was genuinely incoming, the ground radar should be confirming it. The radar showed nothing. Then the system sent 4 more alerts. 5 missiles now. 5 confirmed American nuclear warheads, screaming toward the Soviet Union. The room erupted, officers shouting. Some of them certain this was real. This was it. The Americans were striking. The noise around Petrov was overwhelming. And Stanislav Petrov sat still. He thought about the system. He had helped build it. He knew it wasn't perfect. The satellite technology was new. It had behaved strangely before. The reliability rating on the screen didn't mean what it claimed to mean. He knew that. He thought about the sunlight angle. Soviet satellites were known to sometimes confuse the reflection of sunlight off clouds with the heat signature of a missile launch. He thought about 5 missiles. Still 5. If this was real, really real, why only 5? He had 10 minutes to decide. 10 minutes before the window for a Soviet counterstrike began to close. Stanislav Petrov picked up the phone, and he said, "False alarm." The room went dead quiet. Now there was nothing to do but wait. If he was wrong, if those were real missiles, they would arrive in approximately 20 minutes, and nothing would stop them. 20 minutes passed. Nothing. The system reset. The alert stopped. The radar confirmed. No missiles. No launch. No attack. You'd think Petrov would have been celebrated as a hero. He was not. His superiors launched an investigation, not into the faulty system, into him. Why had he hesitated? Why hadn't he followed protocol? Why had he trusted his instincts over the machine? He was technically reprimanded for improperly filing his incident report paperwork. He had been so focused on making the right call that he hadn't filled in certain forms correctly. The paperwork. He was reprimanded for the paperwork. The investigation did eventually determine what had gone wrong. A single Soviet satellite, Cosmos 1382, had been positioned at just the wrong angle. Sunlight was reflecting off high-altitude clouds in a way that perfectly mimicked the heat signature of a Minuteman missile launch. The system had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had just seen the wrong thing. The software had no way to account for this scenario. Petrov, who had helped write that software, knew it, and that knowledge had saved the world. He was quietly reassigned to a less sensitive role. He took early retirement not long after. The Soviet military, embarrassed that their prize early warning system had nearly triggered a nuclear war, had no interest in celebrating the man who had exposed its failure. For 15 years, nobody outside that bunker knew any of this had happened. The story only became public in 1998, when a retired Soviet general, Yuri Votintsev, finally revealed it in his memoirs. The world found out that they had nearly ended. In the years that followed, Stanislav Petrov was recognized, quietly, belatedly. He received an award from a German peace organization. He was flown to New York and honored at the United Nations. He wasn't comfortable with any of it. In interviews, he repeatedly said something that's almost hard to process. "I was just doing my job." Think about what that means. Every city that exists today, every person born after September 26, 1983, every piece of music written, every building built, every life lived, all of it resting on the decision of one tired man on a Tuesday night in a bunker with no windows, who looked at a screen that said launch and thought, something doesn't add up. He died on May 19, 2017, quietly, at home in a small apartment outside Moscow. The world he saved kept going. If you made it to the end, this is the kind of story we exist to tell. History has thousands of Stanislav Petrovs, people who changed everything and were given nothing, people whose names are in no textbook, on no monument, in no national memory. We're going to find them. If this story shook you the way it shook me when I found it, subscribe, because the next one is just as buried and just as important.